Are the three of you gonna sit here?
I don't know if we can. So
All those on there.
yeah, let's open it up some.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll just move this one back.
Yeah.
You'll have it quick.
Okay. In case the PowerPoint doesn't work for the.
I'm just getting tired of the decision making part. You know, I'm tired of that. I'm shoving more and more of that off on Josh. I just want
You tell me what to do and when you gotta fix it.
to drive tractors and combines, that kind of
And
stuff.
then Mark said you guys could review what's in the ordinance for when, so I just correct the pages of our ordinance that one did them.
Have it. I don't want anything to know about it. That's bad. You don't want to know.
Some of it's not bad, some of it.
So this is where that's from.
I just say, okay, which button am I supposed to push?
Yeah. But first it's just got.
We gotta keep, I know they have those pulse. I never saw a sprayer, but I see.
The first part just says.
I just put a tip in on the wire.
And on page 20, it's.
And there's a planner this spring. Two systems on it, the info and the broadcast system. Set up monitors and everything. Let me just run speed and pressure. The info, it's only a couple gallons an acre. I'm not gonna miss.
This case next year.
There's your little over there.
Okay. It's just. Just let me do that. I'm comfortable with it. You were sitting on a computer that much closer to this, you know.
Did John happen to say why it wasn't working?
He thought that apparently there's a computer override that he has controls to. And it was set at 70, what did he say, 70? 74. So he had to drop it down on his end. Huh? Yeah. So I think I got it at,
And then you could.
I don't think it was off.
yeah, right.
There's a range. There's the rest of
It's
the
just that, you know,
units have a range.
a lot of it's convenient.
This is, I don't know why I set it on 71, maybe now I can't remember.
She had at 70, I don't put it at 70.
We've got-
Okay.
Maybe gonna get a little.
Yeah.
Full on this sprayer.
If it gets heated, we'll bump it down.
Which is nice. But if you forget about it, you get lazy, forget it, you swing your broom over the neighbor's fence.
Oh, does it?
It does, yeah, it doesn't care. It's. And when you sprinkle the storm beam, it just.
Get it warm up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't want to step outside when it's 40 degrees warmer than in
Is there a
here.
trash can in here that we know of?
Oh, you know, I pulled the one that was in your boardroom upstairs, but that was right there.
It's in here a long time ago and trying to figure out where they could even be at. More like a little dungeon then.
Oh. So we are on camera. No, I mean, look at the screen.
Yep. Yeah, if you say anything, an owl will find you.
It will. I'll put it in the driveway.
Oh, okay.
But I gotta ask Ralph first.
What about you thinking on?
Just south of the light
Good, Mark, how are you?
field, which is what they work off the southwest corner.
Old jail key.
There's a clock. 40 years maybe makes more efficient.
Need to know what time it convenes meeting.
The camera? I think it's in the little owl there. So,
Cards in his favor anyway.
Morning, Mark.
Yes, good morning, Doug.
26. 2050.
I think some of it is okay.
Oh, yeah, the dial, and then here's 1129. Yeah. Welcome to the conference assistant. Enter an access code, then press pound.
That's mine, actually.
Oh, all right, no worries.
That access code is not recognized. Please try again. Enter an access code, then press pound. 1 moment while your call is connected.
School this week?
They do in a residence hall. I didn't have that luxury. Riley Hall didn't have it here. Had new burlap curtains. Burlap.
I went this morning, drank beer now.
You know, the window for the trees. Burlap was segregation.
Eventually tore down the residence hall where I started college down at Nap Hall or one. Apparently it was determined to be unsafe.
I started with Floyd Co for 20-some-year lifespan or whatever they do. Made that well worth it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It looked like the same size.
That's what I told the guy. He said, well, we'll be in the fire station.
It didn't fall down while I was there, I guess.
It's happening in the bay instead of, yeah. That's their presentation.
That's the first day, because there was another one.
They want to be there? Oh, okay. Oh, that's the ordinance, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a section of the ordinance.
I have a copy of that. I, first week of September.
Did a copy of it?
No, I he's a good driver. I really like not doing it. That's all right. I was going through the PowerPoint, but yeah.
You're the grilling.
Nope, just on TV and something.
Africa vacation, I'm like, well, I'll get through it.
Ralph says there's no video yet. I said, I haven't started yet. I think I'll live when.
Oh, he was wanting to join.
He wants to watch.
Yep.
Not join this.
It pays okay.
Band-aid out cover those.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, my man.
I'll put it right over there.
Whatever.
Ralph.
Oh,
Six-
I didn't see the hour right there.
He's retired, yeah.
Oh, okay.
He did aerospace, 280 years.
Oh, we all could see me.
We want you on there.
There we go. Well, good morning. It's 9 a.m. We'll call this meeting of the Floyd County Board of Supervisors to order. First item is approving the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion to approve our agenda by Supervisor Jorgensen, seconded by Kiefer. Those in favor of the motion say aye. 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 Motion is carried. Item 2, public comment. Anyone listening on the phone would like to make a public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 3, which is review and action regarding the approval of the August 14th, 2023 board minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the August 24 minutes.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Supervisor Kiefer and seconded by Jorgensen to approve the minutes of the August 14th minutes, Board of Supervisor meeting. Any comments from anyone listening on the phone? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is carried. Item 4, review and action regarding approval of the claims. Notice one real big claim in there. Did you see that one? We don't usually have. $900,000 claims. So we did. The road route.
I looked at the claims, I didn't see anything out of the ordinary. I'll make a motion to approve claims.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Supervisor Kiefer, second by Jorgensen to approve the claim. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Motion carried. Item 5, updates on various boards, commissions, activities since the last meeting. What have you been doing this week?
I had one that I could not attend for DHS. And, other than that, I don't believe I had any of them scheduled.
I attended the Chamber of Commerce Board meeting. Also attended the North Cedar Aviation Authority meeting, and I told Jim that I would step in for him on the DHS, but I had the wrong date and I missed it. So those are the 2 that I attended.
All right, thank you. I had an interesting week. I met with the director of the Charleston Area Development Corporation, Tim Fox, and Mayor Dean Andrews regarding the parcels that the Charleston Area Development Corporation owns. This Wednesday is a rather big day for the future of the economic development of our county. Because on Wednesday in Fort Dodge, sometime between 8:30 and noon, and we don't really know what time, we won't know until the day before. Tim Fox will be testifying on behalf of the Area Development Corporation in regards to 2 parcels. The Area Development Corporation has 2 parcels that they have not signed a voluntary easement with Summit. Some time ago, here the county received a pack of information on the 15 parcels. They call them Schedule H's that have not signed a voluntary agreement with Summit. And 2 of those right in the middle there are the parcels owned by the Area Development Corporation. They are what is considered a non-intervening landowner. In other words, they haven't intervened in the process, but they are objecting to what is being proposed. So what is being proposed that we're going to talk about on Wednesday is the Iowa Utilities Board has scheduled a public hearing to consider Summit's petition to cross Floyd County with this pipeline, including to root any filed objections. The Area Development Corporation on October 26, 2022 filed a fairly extensive objection to Summit crossing the industrial park. And so that could be discussed. And the request for eminent domain authority. So the Summit is requesting from the IUB to condemn the Area Development Corporation's property. They want to take it for eminent domain. Not the entire thing, just the easement that goes right through the middle of it. And in these 2 parcels, it's got all that information where it goes. Just roughly, if you go about 100 feet south of where the Northern Natural Gas Pipeline goes straight east and west across the property, it basically cuts it in half. And and they're going to hear testimony. And so that's what Tim Fox is there to do. He's there to give testimony as to why the Area Development Corporation believes that's not a good idea. They've been negotiating with Summit for a long time. They're miles apart on key things, primarily location. And secondly, the amount of the voluntary easement that Summit is offering to the Area Development Corporation. So this is essentially, because the county has intervened, we have a role in this too. because we can then, as an intervener, cross-examine the witness. So what is being planned, and the work that I was doing this week, is a review of a friendly cross-examination. We're on the same page, the Area Development Corporation and Floyd County. We want to keep Summit out of the industrial park because we believe it reduces the marketability of the project. Millions of dollars of property tax money have been invested in that park. And it reduces our ability to market it and get economic development and growth in the county. So that's why Tim Whipple, our counsel, has been working with Tim Fox, and we'll be presenting a friendly cross-examination to bring out the points. This is the only chance the Area Development Corporation is going to get. And somewhere down the line, the Iowa Utilities Board will decide if they can grant, if they want to. First of all, they have to decide if the Summit Pipeline has a public purpose, but then they will decide if there's the ability to grant eminent domain and take the property. So that's what we're trying to prevent. We'll find out more about that when it's going to be. The night before, it will be live streamed, and that will all be notice of all that will be on the IUB website is when the live streaming is and when the Area Development Corporation will be called to testimony. So I worked a lot on that. In addition, then I went to this, which was very interesting, the Rural Economic Development Summit over at Mason City. And there was economic development directors, elected officials from all over a 10-county region. And had a presentation. It was an event from 11 to 3. It was very interesting about trends in the rural economy. Just a lot of really interesting information about that will affect our future rural economic development. And it just so happened that one of the last presenters at that was Debbie Durham, the Economic Development Director for the state of Iowa. And so I took the opportunity after the meeting was over to introduce myself to Debbie Durham and ask her and tell her about our concerns about our area development park. And she's concerned. She's concerned about the unknown possibilities of Summit locating there. She's got concerns that this is one of only 39 state certified economic development parks in the state of Iowa. And do we want to be the one that has the asterisk, that has a hazardous carbon pipeline going through it? I don't think so. The Area Development Corporation doesn't think so. And one other thing I learned was that the Navigator line actually was proposed to go through a certified site in Iowa. And Navigator, upon request, removed their line from the Fort Dodge certified site to another location. And so that's the goal. And we'll take a big step towards that Wednesday. It's going to be it'll be really interesting. This is the start of the process. It's been moved up 2 months prior to what was originally thought it was going to be. So this is the opportunity for us to speak about our economic development future, and that's what's being planned and what's going to happen down there on Wednesday. So those are the 2 meetings that I took part in. And I'll be going down Wednesday to watch. I don't have a role, I don't speak. It's not that. And the discussion on Wednesday will be specific to these 2 parcels. Not talking about Summit anywhere else in the county or climate change or any of that. It's just specific to the location of Summit's proposed pipeline in these two parcels owned by the Development Corporation. Okay, item 6, update on law enforcement center courthouse project progress report.
Still waiting. Go ahead. We're still waiting to get the bollard out here in the entrance to the atrium. I sent an email to Jason and Seth. Jason with Samuels, Seth, B. Snyder. I didn't get an absolute answer, but they're trying to find something either temporary or permanent. I asked them to be able to do that by the 1st of September. See what happens. Other than that, I'm not sure what else is going on in that. That's where we are.
Continuing with punch list items. The drain issue, I think Bob, talking about the whole drain issue, but they did get the necks of the tape cleanouts are what were broken, and there was rock in the drains. They got as much of the rock as they could get out of the drains, and the city had to come and go up on that corner up here and suck rock out of the drains as well. Discussion from Bill Huey is if there's any rock in the drains, it probably needs to come out. Otherwise, the future is things are gonna hang up in it and it's gonna plug it up in the future. Not sure where the status of that is. I did get an email from Seth with Dean Schneider. He said that Doug Cam is planning on replacing the broken pipe here and the two clean out pipes. But status of the rocks in, not sure where that lands yet, if there needs to be anything done to the rocks. McGage, Sean from McGage said there's very minimal rock in there. He doesn't think it will be a problem, but I don't know if you're taking any position on that, where that lands, if it needs to be cleaned out better or not.
Yep. The only way to clean it up better would be to dig it up.
Yeah.
Right.
That's my understanding, that they've sucked as deep as they could suck here and at the main, that's out of a manhole on the corner.
And we're not sure who's responsible for that rock being in there either, are we?
It's from the project.
Yeah, but I
We
mean,
know it's from the project, either when the rock was, they removed the dirt and put rock in, or when at the beginning of the project for the heavy equipment, there was a metal slab over the top of it that was supposed to help protect the intake or the cleanouts. I've been told that got, as they're moving equipment around, that slab got moved. It wasn't necessarily always over at the top of those drains or cleanouts. And they're broken. Or if it happened when they took the dirt out to replace it, or the rock out to replace it with dirt at the end of the project. The plug happened to occur at the end of the project rather than earlier in the project.
You mentioned that Doug Ham had agreed to replace the pipe. Does that mean he agrees to some responsibility for breaking it?
I just know from the email, Doug had called and said he was going to talk to Seth. He had called me and said he was going to talk to Seth from Dean Schneider. And then Dean just sent me an email, or Seth from Dean Schneider sent me an email that Doug would be replacing it. So that part of that was there was a contract with Cam Excavating being a subcontractor. And so whether it's the subcontractor or the contractor accepting or paying the bill, that I'm not sure. But I do think there's probably still more to figure out with if there's anything we need to do with rock that's in
county won't have to pay for the return, correct?
No. Seth's email says, I just got off the phone with Doug. When we installed the temporary rock area, a steel plate was installed over the top of the existing courthouse cleanouts. That plate remained in place until the rock was removed and the black dirt was spread. Once that was done, 2 castings were installed over the top of the cleanouts. Sounds like Doug is going to stop over, install new PVC pipe on the cleanouts and reinstall the castings. I don't know. Nothing's addressed about if there's anything should be done about the rock.
Well, I don't like the sound of rock in my sewer line.
Sounds like a lot of it got in there.
I understand there was
You
some
know,
3-inch
all
rock
the
in
stuff
there.
is gonna get flushed
3
out
inch.
through there. I mean, we're asking for trouble down the road, aren't we, for sure?
Yeah.
I think now's the time to get that end of it and just, I'm not willing to accept the fact that somebody got rock in there and we're gonna be digging it up later.
We need to do it timely too, so we can seed it, because it's gonna,
Right, they're gonna be coming in time to see.
yeah, so we have to do it, dig it up and replace it when that happens.
I feel like I've put what I can put out as follow-up to getting that rock cleaned out. I think it probably needs to come from you if you wanna push that.
Okay, I can,
And so then determine who's gonna pay for it took it almost a day, right?
Yeah, it was about like 3 to 4 hours. 3 men from Mtg worked on it.
No, we shouldn't be on the hook for that either.
No, I don't believe we're going to be.
Okay.
I don't think we will be for any of that. We just got to get the bill to them when we get
All
to them. Yeah. But I don't know what will happen with. Like I said, Sean from Gage said he thought the rock was minimal that was still in there, but they did hear that there was some rock that was 3 inches in size that they sucked out of the drain as well. And from both spots, so there's something still in the middle there.
Hmm.
I don't
Can they run a camera in there and check it?
know. They could, that might be something you propose.
the camera, you say?
That maybe the Gage or someone runs a camera.
They did run a
They
camera.
did,
Yeah.
Well, to see
Okay.
what rock is left, I think is what. you're saying.
after they think they've got it clean.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They ran a camera in to see what was left,
Mhm.
but I don't think they ran the camera in after cleaning out what they cleaned out.
Okay.
Don't have anything else.
Okay, one thing that's been a concern of mine for some time is this room that's across the hall is where the board of supervisors are gonna have an office space. And when are they gonna get their stuff cleaned out of there so this board can move into that and have an actual office space?
Well, the trades are still doing their punch list stuff. So like last week, Young Plumbing was still here working out of that office. So I think we have to be able to provide them with a place to work out of with their materials. I don't know where it would be if it's not there.
How about some other office that isn't occupied upstairs? If all it is they're moving their what do they have, pipes or
Yeah, a
stuff
little
like
bit of
that,
everything.
little stuff?
A little bit of everything.
I mean, can't we move them up into a first floor office space that isn't occupied? Imagine taking all this stuff home and sorting it and keeping track of it. I mean, I don't think you'd get any other elected official this deep into the project to say the trades can keep their stuff in our room. We need an officer on it. And I just don't like the idea that tell them to take it, let's tell them to take it, put it somewhere else. I want to get moved into that room, get set up, so I can keep all my materials instead of shuffling them from home and back and forth. That's where it is.
I think there's a lot of stuff to move back and forth. That's why I carry that bag, but it's be a lot. It'd be nice to leave some here and have it here.
Oh, yeah.
Talk with. The last conversation I had was with a couple weeks ago, probably when we met with Jason, and he said he would talk to Brian about getting their stuff out of there. Cindy's group still has stuff in there as well.
The drawings are still in there.
Yeah.
Architect stuff.
Well, it's kind of me, it's kind of like the, we're gonna later on, we're gonna talk about the update or a discussion regarding the courthouse project, the accounting and recording, but we're pretty much declaring this project over, and we don't have an office space in this building. We're the executive branch. I think we're gonna move them out of there and just tell them that they're gonna go to another room with their stuff, because personally, I got 2 desks at home that are just full of county stuff. And, I'm one of the last. To me, this is a big deal.
Should be able to
Time to
move.
move in there. You wouldn't ask any other elected official to operate out of home, and I think we should stand up and say, hey, move out. Anyway, so you convey that information?
Yep.
All right, thank you. All right, thanks a lot. Anything else on this agenda item? All right. Okay, item 7, review and action regarding Motorola Solutions Communication System Service Agreement. We had that contract in here. Have you had a chance to look at that? Last week we made some changes regarding that. And it needs to be approved by the 24th, is that correct? So we need to do it today.
That's correct.
All right.
See, Sherry is here. If you have any questions of Sherry, which you have in it's a separate, because it was a bigger document, it's a separate attachment to your agenda packet email. And I just have provided you with the first page in your packet, in your extra attachment. It looks like this. This just shows that they removed the word lease. And then I just kept the rest of the information in your packet, just so you would have all of those expenses broke down. The actual contract is a page that starts like this. That says Communication Systems and Services Agreement. And that's what occupies the rest of that document.
All right, our county attorney seen all this?
County
You
attorney
read through it?
reviewed it a month ago or whenever. That's things like the lease part were pulled out of it. The contract for not leasing is what you see. Questions that I had brought forward were the 14.2 has what the maintenance contract charges are for years 2 through 6. That's the $1.2 million. That's the part that from the previous meetings, that if those maintenance contracts were reduced, that would impact the bottom line of the contract. Sherry has confirmed that if those maintenance contracts are changed, it won't affect that the contract would otherwise be increased.
Sure.
So that was just my understanding that, like, I'm gonna call it like the Cadillac of the maintenance agreements. And Ben is going to work with
Yep.
other,
911 appointed myself, Travis Bartz, Jason Webster, and John Gore to sit and go through that maintenance agreement and see where we can reduce some of that cost. So we actually met last week and started on some of that, reached out to counties around us that are already on the system and see what they've had troubles with and where we can reduce some of that maintenance costs. So hopefully that first year of maintenance won't be paid till year number 3 of the project, because, while they're building the project, we don't pay maintenance, and the first year after we accept the project is included. So we have a couple of years. We're gonna work with Chickasaw County and Worth County. We reached out to them and see where we can reduce some of that maintenance cost. So
All right, any questions? Comments? All right,
Appreciate everything to add, Sherry.
Well, I'm really looking forward to, this is a big day, a big step for the county and for the first responders within this county and the area. And I'm looking forward to getting started and improving those communications for those responders. And thank you for the opportunity to bring that forth to you.
thank you, you're welcome. Is there a motion to approve the agreement?
I will so move.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Supervisor Keeper, seconded by Jorgensen, to approve the Motorola Solutions Communication System and Service Agreement, or ICS Local Enhancement. Further discussion? Any comment from anyone listening on the phone? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion's carried. All right, agenda item 8, Drainage District number 3, main open ditch repair. At our last meeting, we had some extensive review of the project. We had a lot of the landowners here. There was a couple of issues that we didn't have the attorney for this project advice for us. Since that time, we've gotten a letter about that. And one of the things that I'll just read from that letter is in your packet. Can I have the project manual there? And that summary one as well. Hopefully some of you had a good chance to review all this stuff. That's why we made it available to everybody.
And Bob Goodwin may be on the phone.
Bob, are you around? Are you there listening?
I am.
Oh, you are? Okay.
I'm on the line,
Well, excellent. That's very good. I rather have you explain your letter talking about section 468.126. But we've received a letter from you clarifying some of that, but would you go ahead and, for the benefit of everybody's here, talk about your interpretation of what that means and what options, or if there's shall language and may language that the trustees take into consideration?
Yes, be happy to. The code section itself says, when the board deems it necessary, it may, and that's an important word, may repair or reconstruct the outlet of any private tile line which empties into a drainage ditch of any district, and assess the cost in each case against the land served by the private tile line. And I had Don Etler, who I've worked with over the years, with Bolton and Mink, he's retiring now, contact me, and he said, that's a code section that is rarely applied, because if you're going to assess the cost against the land of the private tile, you have to do a reclassification, and it's a timely process, and it would cost substantially more than the price of the tile. What I understand is Tyler is proposing replacing 20 feet of tile. And the point that he makes is a valid point, is that replacement of private tile actually benefits the drainage district by making sure that private tile outletting into the open ditch of this is DD3, doesn't cause erosion or rippling downstream. So it is a benefit to the drainage district overall. And Don explained to me, he's done it for I don't know how many years. Only one time did the drainage district assess those costs and found that the cost to reclassification far exceeded the cost of the tile itself. And so no other drainage district through his career has done that because it's just not practical. And again, the code says the board, when it deems necessary, may repair and assess the cost. There's another code section that talks about reclassification, and it also talks about may make a change if it deems that the assessments are inequitable. And his experience, and he wanted me to share it. He wanted to share it with me so I could share it with you. That typically the assessments as they exist are equitable, and it's within the board's discretion whether to make a change. And all the boards, from his experience, and I think he has over 20, 30 years experience, have determined that it's not, the assessments are not inequitable, and it's not logical to make a reclassification, which costs a lot more than just putting in 20 feet of new tile, of private tile, which actually benefits the drainage district. So his background, he helped me better understand the practicalities of the situation. And I note that the code sections about putting in the tile and reclassification are discretionary. It says may, it does not say shall. And that's where, from my observation, is that the specifications that Tyler has prepared on behalf of both and me are reasonable and should be able to proceed with them.
The question I have is the code says that it would require a reclassification, but we just went through that. So you're talking about another reclassification?
Yeah. And that's where he says it's far more costly to do another reclassification to include these 20 feet of right of way where the private tile are. And so it just, as a practical matter, it's not practical to do a reclassification that is much more expensive than a 20 feet of tile, which actually benefits the drainage district.
So your comments talk about 20 feet of tile. What we're talking about is a pipe, right? Isn't that right? A pipe and an outlet into the. Is that correct? It's pipe, and there's a. So you'd have a pipe and an animal guard at the end of it. Is that, Tyler? Is that what the specifications are written to be?
Yes, in the event that we find private tiles that are damaged and in need of repair, we replace them with, it's typical for a 20-foot section of corrugated metal pipe to be entered into the drainage district. And in the event that the private tiles had animal guards before, we replace those as part of the project. We do not have the specifications written right now that every tile gets an animal guard. That's something that could be considered, but as a district expense, we had not had the animal guards as being a requirement that the district would pay for.
So do we know how many of these private tile are going into the ditch?
We have an estimate. The amount that we had for there was an estimated 50 12-inch private tile extensions. There may be more, there may be less. That was based off of similar sized projects and the quantity of private tiles that were found at the time of the survey.
So just so I'm trying to understand it correctly, it's a steel pipe that the private tile goes into. So
Correct. It is the last 20 feet, the very end of the private system. The private tiles that enter into the ditch that are not and haven't been considered district facilities.
Does that 20 feet get you back into this berm or this mound that's over here on this?
It does. The intent is to connect to good sections of pipe that are back in the bank and use a corrugated metal pipe because those are able to support their own weight, cantilever out into the channel better than a plastic or certainly a clay or concrete pipe would. That allows for the water to be discharged further into the channel's flow as opposed to water going directly down the banks.
Do you believe that during the clean out of the ditch, then that most of these approximately 50 private tile line are going to be tore up, or what do you think? I mean,
I think that that's a fair estimate on the amount that are there. It may be a little bit of a conservative estimate on being over the amount, because I don't want to come back afterwards and tell the district that we found even more, and there's even more of an expense. As far as locating those tile during construction and as it is being cleared of trees and the sides and the bottom are being repaired, we have inspectors that walk both sides of the ditches to find, mark, and document all of those private tiles, their sizes, their conditions. We have logs, we take photos. So there should be no question at the end, the amount that was found, what their sizes were, and what everything was replaced with.
I know one of the concerns that was addressed at the last meeting was Bolton and Lake's presence on that site. You know, when this is going on, you're going to be digging up quite a lot of these private tiles. How will you ensure to the district and to the trustees that that they're going to find those as they're going through there?
The communication is paramount, so we're in almost daily contact with the contractor. We do plan on being on site at least twice in a week, and every foot of that ditch will be walked as it's being cleaned or as it has been cleaned. That's the best guarantee I can make that every one of those will be found. I'm also not opposed to any landowners that know of outlets coming forward, cooperations that way. but that's what we do and how we find them and how we deem them to be replaced.
Well, I posed some of the questions I remember from the last meeting. Landowners, what's your reaction to that? Sounds like we're gonna have to reclassify. Oh, Dennis, sorry.
Yeah, why wasn't this included in the first reclassification that was done?
We do not include private tiles on reclassifications. The reclassifications cover the drainage district facilities and how they interact and are beneficial to the district. We would have no way of knowing where or what those private systems looked like, nor would we have the right to go and try to make assumptions, or what we would need to reclassify those private tiles and to truly assess the cost of the extensions to the lands that are served. We would need every map of every system that came into the open ditch. The reason that we are able to reclassify the district facilities is because we have what the original engineer's report and what the original plats and profiles of those systems were. So we know where they go. We know what the lands served by them are. We can assess benefit to those. We do not have those for the private tiles, nor do we have a way of accurately obtaining any of that information, which makes it almost impossible for me with any sort of accuracy to determine, as the code states, the lands served by the private tiles. I will say, in conversations with other drainage engineers that I have spoken with, there is one instance of a county that, for the assessment of the private tile extensions, instead of assessing the lands served as the code states, the districts decide to assess the costs directly to the adjacent landowners on the ditch, and they have those landowners figure out on their own what the extent they are owed by the rest of the private tile system. So in my opinion, that still isn't following the assessments of the lands served, as there's no real way of knowing what the lands served are, and is and I stand by of what Bob said, that the replacement of those private tile extensions is a benefit to the open ditch system.
Yeah.
They would be a benefit regardless of who paid for them once they're installed, correct?
It would. The code is clear that it's deemed the replacement of those is a benefit, and the trustees have the ability to have them replaced as part of a project.
And that's the proposal that you presented in the specifications. And what we're just talking about is.
Yeah, yes, they are planned to be replaced. The real question at hand in my mind is how the trustees are prepared to have those assessed against the district. It's not in my mind, it's less of a question of whether or not they should be or would be done as they are in the specifications to be done, and more how they are paid for.
Well, the way I'm listening to this, the way I'm hearing it from the attorney and from Tyler and the discussion we've had, it's legal to do. It requires a reclassification.
Show me the law on the reclassification.
Okay.
I want to see the mandatory law on the reclassification. I don't think you have to reclassify. You do not have to reclassify. That's a scare tactic by the professionals here today.
That's correct. There's no code on it says that it has
It
to.
doesn't say you shall.
Your name, sir?
Joe Goshi,
Okay.
I'm here for.
Thank you. All right, we had some comments that is not found, that the requirement to reclassify is not in the code. Bob, would you like to answer that one?
Say it again.
We had a question from Joe Gochi that the requirement to reclassify to change the method of which the last 20 feet of the private tile going into the ditch is assessed is not part of Iowa code. You said that you had a discussion with engineer Don Eller, and he said that the outlet of the private tile lines would need to be reclassified. So the question is, where is it in the code?
Yeah, section 648.65, paren 1 of the code is where you find that if the board finds that the existing assessment is inequitable, then they may then go ahead and ask for a reclassification. But it's up to the board. It has discretion to determine whether or not the existing assessments are inequitable. And that's where it is a matter of discretion of the board whether the existing assessments are inequitable and whether it's inequitable to charge the landowners within DD3 for the cost of apparently approximately 20 feet of tile, of private tile, when it already benefits DD3. So it's a matter of discretion, and it's in section 468.65, paren 1, Code of Iowa, and that's where Mr. Etler, in his years of experience, said only one time did a board do that type of reclassification, and it was much more expensive than the cost of the 20 feet of tile, which still benefits the drainage district.
But we don't have to do the reclassification. Correct?
Correct.
So
if you find that what existing is fair and equitable, you don't have to do a thing. And the code gives you the authority to work on those private extensions that are affecting the drainage district.
All right, I just pulled up that section of the code and read it myself. I agree. It's left to the discretion of the board. In this case, the board of the trustees operate the drain on behalf of the landowners. So if this is going to change the makeup, the cost, that's what it's going to do. And there will be some people that'll pay more, and there'll be some people that'll pay less. Because currently it's being assessed against all the landowners in the district for the last 20 feet, correct? That's the specs?
Yeah.
Correct.
So if we're talking about assessing that only to if the board determines that that's inequitable, and we're going to assess it to just those private landowners, some people are going to pay more, some people are going to pay less. That's what this really boils down to. So we're acting on your behalf. I'd like to hear from landowners here who are today about what you think of this. Chair recognizes Bruce question.
My proposal is that we put in 40 feet of pipe. That way it gets it through the berm and gets it out away from all the work that we're doing on the ditch. And the landowner pays $500 to dig the tile up, plus the 40 feet of pipe, plus the animal guard and riprap on the end of it. And on the district tile, do the same thing. You charge the district the same thing, and everybody on that lateral pays for that tile. Because that's why we reclassified it, because everybody on that tile should pay for that tile. The private people should pay for their own tile. And that way you got the ditch will be all done. There'll be 40 feet of pipe in there. So if they gotta work on it, they should never have to bother the ditch. So it's $500 to dig it up, plus the pipe, plus the rat guard, plus the riprap. Charge the laterals and to the private people as they put it in. They should be happy to get it done because they have a good outlet.
Well, I'd like to just refer to the first one first. It's not kind of like, never mind. Kind of like I see you and then I call and then I see you some more. So let's discuss this first one first, which is the private tile, and talk about the laterals secondary. We're talking about the private tile lines first, and let's just discuss that idea first before we get into assessing landowners 540 feet. Other comments from anybody else in the room that's a landowner? It sounds as if there's a opportunity the board could do it if we felt it's in our rule. We don't really have to reclassify. Yes, sir. What's your name?
Kurt Marsh.
Kurt.
Who, when the private tile were put in, when they were put in originally, we paid for the pipe then, the private people, didn't
I can only imagine so.
you? Paid for it then, would they?
Correct.
So then they should continue paying.
Any other comments? There's maps, you look through here and you see all these little lines where they think that they know where the private tile that comes in here. There's little marks there where they think they have it. I suppose they know where most of them are, but this has been in existence a long time. I'm sure there are probably some that have added on that people don't know about. That's going to happen, and that probably is the case that I think one of the concerns of the district certainly are is we don't want to run this bill up more than it was expected. We've got a $590,000 cost in this. If we start finding a whole lot of private tiles involved in this, then that gets borne by all the members of the district. I don't know how many they might be, but when they walk it, I'm sure they're going to find some. We're making decisions on your behalf, and it's actually being discussed. So if you have an opinion on this, now's the time to let us know. Yes.
Regardless of who pays for these private tile, it's still going to benefit the drainage district as a whole, whether the district pays for it or the private owners pay for it. If the tile are installed, they're going to benefit regardless how it's paid for. So I don't understand the difference in the comment made that it's you know, if the county or the drainage district replaces each tile, the ditch will function better. If it's replaced, it's gonna function better regardless who pays for it. My opinion.
Landowners need to pay for their own tile.
Yeah.
The district needs to pay for their own laterals.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, Alderman Clark.
This question, maybe to Tyler and maybe to Bob also, but if it's part of the, do the specs have to be redone for one thing? And I ask that because we can't issue a drainage warrant to the contractor for private tile work out of a drainage district. So how would that bill be paid whenever a contractor does that work?
If you paid the District 3,
If you're saying that,
there ain't gonna have to be one, it's just a bill.
but if I pay a bill out of District 3's fund, I can only assess the, per the schedule of the district. I can't pay a bill out of a fund. If you're saying the private landowners are responsible to pay that, how does that function through a project? Because I'd be prohibited to pay for a private tile bill that a landowner has to pay.
You pay the bill, the landowner pays, but you don't have to do it different. It's all in one project. All the private landowners are still in the project. If they get a bill separate to pay for it.
But I know you don't understand drainage accounting, but I can't pay for something out of a fund that's a mutual fund. I can't pay a bill for a private landowner. I can't pay the contractor for the work that's done on behalf of a private landowner out of a drainage fund. I'm prohibited by law to do that. And I don't know how so I imagine that the contractor is going to have to do a bill for what's done for the mutual district and a bill that's what's done under private, but that's the specifications I would presume are not presented that way. And in my mind, it seems like you want that facility to be functional. And this 20-foot practice has been tried and proven by Bolton and Mink, by ISG, by many different engineers. And it seems like a reasonable process to go through. And so it's how do you know then whose private tile it is? Because it may not be the adjacent property owner's tile. It could go to another field that they just got permission to go through the adjacent to the tile private landowner's property.
It would be up to the people that own the land to figure that out.
So who am I gonna bill?
Every tile you find, you bill it to somebody. I don't care where it is.
So if there's maybe 50 private tile there, you're saying the trustees have to figure out whose 50 tiles those are. And
that is correct.
That's exactly how it works, and you can actually.
All right, one speaking at a time. Berlin, you're answering questions from Auditor Carr.
Yeah, but that's how you do it. If the landowner don't want to get charged more than what he's got, then he got to pay attention to what's going on, so he knows exactly what size pipe's going in and where it's at and who to get charged for. And if it goes across this.
and who's gonna do the work that I can pay a bill for? Because I have to pay a bill, otherwise a landowner may never pay a bill.
They're just paying let's put it this way, they're paying the county to get their tile in, okay?
When are they paying the county to get their tile in? When is that coming in the mutual ditch?
When you set up a bill.
how do I know to, but I have to pay a bill and I can't pay a bill out of the drainage funds. I can't do that. It's like I can't pay a bill.
Everything is charged to the district, and what you're doing is turn around and charging them for what they're using.
So I have to pay the contractor for doing the work.
Right,
I have to pay the contractor out of the drainage ditch fund.
right, and they're in the
But
private tile,
if
they're
it's
paying
a
it.
private tile, I can't pay a bill that's for something private, that's not part of the mutual districts. My fund is a district mutual fund.
Now, there's a way to do it.
Is it possible, Scott,
Okay, please, thank you.
Scott Andrews, is it possible you can have it invoiced separately? So that is very
That's what I
differentiated.
said.
So that part needs to be separated but you can just have an accrual account set up and you can post it to that.
Yeah.
And then you can turn around and send out the assessment against it.
No, I'm restricted to do what you just said.
You can't set up an
But
extra.
what I would like Tyler or Bob to answer the question on how, if specs need to be redone and if I think it's just being made more convoluted than it needs to be. You're making it harder than it needs to be to do what you're asking. But it seems like this has been a tried and true function of a historical way of doing drains. Seems to have worked. And I guess Tyler, do the specs have to be rewritten?
As a courtesy to the contractors that would be bidding on this, if the situation was going to be more complicated and invoicing separately and being billed directly to landowners, like you said, Gloria, there's the possibility an invoice gets addressed to a landowner from a contractor that never gets paid. As part of these drainage projects as well, they're often covered with warrants. So some of the contractors like to know that it's being in warrants because there's the potential for interest. So there's considerations in bid prices. So all of that being said, if it were going to be split up and handled differently than a district charge, the specifications would need to be made clear that that was going to be the expectation, or I feel we're doing a disservice to those that put bids on these. And I would have to work closely with you, Gloria, to find out how those, in my mind, it would have to be special assessments. You would almost have to, if it's being done as part of a district project, find a way to special assess those that were deemed to be benefiting, which is where Bob and Don get into, well, if you're going to set up those special assessments, that's akin to or in the same vein as your reclassifications. We may not know exactly what lands were served, but if you needed to have a schedule to pay off of for the adjacent landowners, you would still have to have a schedule that outlined that and what their tile responsibilities were. So I would need to work with Gloria and the auditor's office to come to a solution for assessments before I could make the changes in the specifications that would outline what that new process was going to look like.
Can I ask Gloria a question?
Yes, you're saying.
You just said, yeah, this Joe Go sheet, and I'm with Marlon. If you can't pay with district funds for private tile, then how can you pay for those private outlets?
Because it's part of it's a discretionary by the Board of Supervisors, from what Bob said. If they feel that it is a benefit to the district, that 20 foot within that facility area benefits that facility. That is how the supervisor's discretion.
Well, I understand that.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to have a bad pipe in there and then they come in after redo the ditch and redo it again. That's why that's in there.
Right.
Okay. I've managed private projects that have pipe going into the ditch. And we have our own personal schedule that nobody else knows about, but it's in the abstracts, filed in the abstracts, not filed with the county. And so if you hand the adjacent private property owner the bill for the pipe that was put in for his behalf, they gotta figure it out themselves. You don't have to include the engineer or the attorney or anything like that. And if the contractor's worried about getting paid, he can put a mechanic's lien on the property. It's gonna get paid. You guys are
What
just
you're
making
missing
it
is
way,
you can't pay it
and I'm
off
gonna
the
tell you,
Drainage fund.
by not watching this stuff, I've seen things get way out of hand from where I come from. They've come in with these types of pipes 6 months after the project was signed off being closed with up to $50,000 in bills, you know, and that's what I see. If the private property owners don't keep track of their own pipe, this baby can get way out of hand. It hasn't in Cassuth County many times. And it's just a graph for these engineers, because every time he gets a change order, he charges more, the engineer charges more, and the contractor gets more. And we don't know how many pipe are out there, but you know where the district pipe are at. So now you know, hey, this is what it's gonna cost the district.
I just don't believe I can pay for, if you're separating private tile, this 20 foot, it's not like the entire private tile is 20 foot of the private tile. I think Bob and Tyler have provided a very good explanation of why it doesn't make sense to reclassify, to come up with a schedule for private tile and to just do this 20 foot in the project. We've done it in others. It seems very reasonable. I don't believe the district can pay for it out of the contract as it is, because the contract is for a district facility. But it's just making sure the facility is good to pay for that 20 foot. The only way that I think the county we couldn't do it out of, pay for it out of rural services. That wouldn't be an appropriate place to pay for it until the property owner pays the money back. Could do it out of general fund, I suppose, but that it just seems like 20 foot is a reasonable part of a project in that facility to make sure everything affecting the facility is functioning. Beyond 20 foot, seems reasonable that the property owners have to take care of that. But for the facility itself, 20 foot seems reasonable. It's been done across the entire state on numerous projects that way.
We don't have to reclassify to do this.
Well, for what Bob can address that. He already did, saying that's 468-65-1. That you have to reclassify if you do it. You have to come up with a schedule for that private tile somehow. That's what he's talking about, is a schedule for that private tile.
Don't have to reclassify.
A schedule for the private tile though. What's the schedule for the private tile? You just throw out, let's put, but you're saying $500. Let's put $1,000. Let's put $100. It's kind of willy-nilly.
No, we can come up with a fair amount. This gentleman back.
Yeah. Marla?
Yes, Marlon Schweitzer. The idea of doing what I suggested was to keep track of the pipe. There's too many projects, there's too many pipe get charged out that are not used. So our price would go sky high. And the reason I went 40 feet instead of 20 is to get it past the berm, so it is away from the berm. Because at 20 feet, they're gonna have to dig halfway through the berm to hook up to the new pipe. So if you put 40 feet in, you get yourself outside the berm. And the private people need to pay for it. And it's up to you guys to decide what we do. It's not up to Bolton Mink or the lawyer, it's up to the supervisors.
I understand that. And I pose the question. two people of all the landowners have suggested this is a good idea. I've heard from them. Understand, if we start this and do this, there are gonna be costs, because if somebody has to call it a reclassification, somebody has to reassess what this is gonna be. It's not like there isn't gonna be any cost to it, because we don't have to reclassify, but I mean, they gotta go back and start over again, because these aren't the specs that would be bidding. I mean, you gotta take away all the private tile out of it, so there's gonna be work that they're gonna pay to Bolton and Mink and to do it. That cost is gonna be borne, and then there's gonna be the cost will shift. You know, people in the district are no longer gonna be charged for that cost. So I don't think I'm seeing this wrong, but I mean, you've got the people that are putting tile lines that are gonna pay for it. Yet that's a cost that the rest of the district won't have, the landowners. We're just talking about the ones that are going into the main, not the laterals. Take that one off the table for a while. Just one at a time first, and then talk about that. So I'm again looking for some of the landowners to indicate some support or what you think. David, you're right.
David McGregor. So I'm not a landowner, but I thought Tyler said that there was 50 private outlets that were in the bid.
Approximately.
Okay, so there are some there already. And there may be more, but he's estimating 50 already in the project bid.
That's correct, Tyler?
Correct. That's accounting for the 12-inch pipe. There are others that would be larger, but for the sake of argument right now, 50 is a fair number.
In the bid, we have 1,000 12-inch diameter pipes. That's in the bid specs right now.
Yep. So that'd be 1,000 lineal feet by 20 feet per 50.
They're 20 feet length, right?
Right. So it's 1,000 lineal feet, because the pipe's all sold in lineal feet. If it's 20 per outlet, that's 50 outlets.
Got it. Yes.
David McGregor. So that's a dollar amount. So if you have smaller outlets, it's 20 times, it's a total dollar amount. So if you had smaller ones, you could actually do more for the dollars than you would if they're all 12-inch ones.
Yeah, not all are gonna be 12.
I would think. No, they're not. I know they're not.
Right.
Erwin Johnson.
Yes, Erwin, go ahead.
I came here not figuring I wasn't gonna keep my mouth shut. Apparently, I've got an inspiration to say a few words, I guess. One thought I am having as I'm listening to discussion is, how many landowners are there? I'm talking about the landowner that has land right next to the ditch. How many are there?
7.
Of those 7, okay, so if I have an issue, I'm a tenant, I'm not a landowner. I'm a major beneficiary of this project getting done. To me, it is not that relevant. I'm gonna pay indirectly, I'm gonna pay for it anyway at some point. But if the landowners that I rent ground from, if there's an issue, I go to them. I'm thinking of the practicality. I go to them and say, hey, we got an issue with the tile. Will you send me a bill, or we'll discuss how we're going to divide this up. It's going to be very complicated for the tenants. And I would suggest that the 7 landowners, I don't know how many of them are actually farming. They rent the ground to someone else. So it'll complicate the tenant relationship between the landowner. It's going to make it more complicated. I'm okay with the system that we apparently has been very common across the state and our county. I'm not saying that it's perfect, but it's been a workable thing for a long time. And so I guess, let's get this project done. You know, we're talking $1,000 for each tile coming in, or $50,000. That's a fraction of the major cost of all this. So I guess my conclusion as a tenant, that let's get this project done and quit making it so complicated.
Mark,
Yes.
what if there was a reclassification done? Is there a ballpark price of what that cost would be?
I'm so hesitant to say anything regarding that, because to truly, in my opinion, and conversations I've had with others, to truly get to what the code says of assessing the lands served, I don't know that professionally or accurately or with I would be able to confidently tell you that I could do that, because of the amount of private systems, the variability in those systems, the ages, whether or not maps existed or not. I agree with the comment earlier that was said that oftentimes the newer systems have private agreements for where they go and how much is served and who is served by them. But that's not the case for all of them. And that's certainly not something that, even in the accounts where those exist, I don't have access to them. So as far as the practicality and the accuracy and something that I would feel comfortable standing behind the work of, I'm going to have to decline to even give a dollar amount, because I couldn't accurately do it.
All right, thank you.
Don, this is Bob Goodman. Don Etler, when he called me, he has years of experience, just simply said, the reclassification will be substantially more than the cost of the tile itself. That's based upon his years of experience. And he's always been very accurate with his information to me. And again, he has worked for Bolton and Mink, and he's in the process of retiring there, but he has a wealth of information. His statement was the reclassification would be substantially more expensive than the cost of the tile that's going to be put in.
Yes.
But we don't have to do the reclassification to do this, isn't that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
But I don't think when you're saying reclassification that Dennis is getting the same idea there. You're saying reclassification as a schedule to assess the private tile landowners. And when you're saying you don't have to do that, that's discretionary by the Board of Supervisors. I think Supervisor Kiefer is saying we don't have to do that. We can come up with our own thing to come up with assessing these private tile landowners. But how you could come up with it, if you've got an engineer who does this as a profession, and he says, how are you going to come up with, where do those private tile systems go to? How are you going to come up with a schedule to assess them appropriately?
I think to clarify things, you would not require any further reclassification or schedule development if you did the project as it is currently slated in the plans and specifications. If you wanted to have a difference of how those private tiles were assessed, you would have to have some basis, some schedule creation to do that different than what currently exists. So that is to say, to do the pipe replacements and as it's slated, no, you would not have to have a reclassification so long as they were paid as a district expense. Would you need a schedule to do it any other way? Yes.
Can I say something? You pay for materials and you pay for labor. You have an account on that for that private property. That's what you charge. You don't have to come up with some mysterious schedule or reclassification like these guys are saying. It's like this, here's the material, here's what it costs to be put in, and here's your bill. Done.
Question the auditor card has is how that assessed.
Well, in Cassuth County, I see them paying for private tile all the time with warrants. And then what the district does is go back to that private person and have them reimburse the district for that material and labor done on their property.
I see that as an efficient way of doing it. I can talk with the auditor from Cassuth County, but you're just delaying this project. I think it needs to be done. And I don't believe I could issue stamped warrants to a contractor for private work done.
Yes, Marilyn?
You wouldn't be paying the warranty, you'd be paying the contractor to do the work, and then you just turn around and charge the landowner.
Where do I get the money to pay the contractor? Where do I get the money to pay the contractor if I haven't assessed anybody for the work done? We're gonna spend $590,000 on a project that we're gonna use stamped warrants, not money. We don't have the money until everyone is assessed to pay their bill.
Well, it's just as soon as you put them a bill on a private one, you'll have some money. That'll all go toward the district.
They gotta pay for it somewhere first. That stamped warrant has to
But
be.
you've already got your warrants put out because the contractor's gonna do the job. There's your warrants. And then what you're doing is you're charging the private people this amount for this stuff that has nothing to do with it. It's a separate bill and it's paid to the district. And all it's doing is be accounting for the money. That's all it's doing.
So you're saying the contractor's gonna give me a separate bill?
No. It's just done. But when you get done, the contractor's got a bill for the work he's done, then all you gotta do is bill the private people. It has nothing to do with warrants or anything else, and the money you collect goes in the district's free. That pays for the work, that pays for the pipe.
Not an appropriate way to do it.
Yes.
Gordon Bogey, the problem is, and I've done my share of digging and a little bit of tiling, what are you gonna do when you get out there and 20 foot ain't far enough? Where are you assessing the rest of that?
You quit.
There's where I see the problem. The districts are gonna put in the first 20 foot, what if it's shot behind there? Then you're gonna assess the private guys. Why don't the private guy pay it all?
John, is there anything else? Any comments from anyone listening on the phone? We're kind of going around and around here. It seems to be, we're kind of at a point where I think we've heard and understand the issue that's been brought up to us. And I think we've had some pretty good discussion. I just, to the point where, do you think that the Bolton as Mink has filed inequitable reclassification? That's the first thing you have to determine to do any of this. You have to state that the section of the code, because we believe that may consider whether the existing assessments are inequitable. We can do it, but we have to declare that. Is that what you think? And then you proceed down this process of how in the world we're gonna possibly do it. We've had both the auditor and the people that make say how hard it's gonna be. It's gonna be difficult. They haven't done it. Says not, that doesn't mean it can't be done. All right? I think it's essentially the trustees end up having to say one way or the other. Do we think this is an equitable assessment that's currently done? Either we're gonna move forward with this one, or we're basically just gonna start over. You know, this does get to drag on then, because this won't happen this fall. I mean, they're not gonna get any reassessment done. Drainage just isn't gonna get cleaned out in a timely manner like it has been. You just have to kind of take the blinders off and see the whole picture, because this is gonna delay it. Is that what you want us to do? We feel it's been inequitably assessed. If there aren't any further comments from the owners of the district or the trustees, I'd like to hear what the trustees think.
I think it's time to move forward with it. I think we'll had some good comments, like you said, but I think it's time to move forward with it. But the reclassification is going to cost extra if we went that route. It's going to cost more than the pipe is. I think we just need to expedite it, get started, move forward as presented.
I still feel there's some questions that aren't answered. If we get beyond the 20 feet that Mr. Bogey suggested, what happens then? And we're back to the same thing again. Who do we bill? How's it get paid? What do we do? And there may be some of that. It only takes one to be a problem. I'm still in favor of the private party paying the bill for the tile and the pipe.
To comment on the 20 feet, I think I might have heard Bob Goodwin or Bolton, one of them said that after the 20 feet, it's the landowners. It's their responsibility. I thought I heard that in the conversation today, or was I mistaken?
That would be my understanding. This is Bob Goodwin.
Thank you.
It's not gonna be part of the project. So it wouldn't be part of the project.
Right. It wouldn't be part of the project after 20 feet. It'd be on the landowners to hire the contractor to do what needs to be done.
That is correct. We supply the replacements of faulty outlets. We do not do anything beyond that.
All right, any final comment regarding this before we consider action? We've got several things to review and act on. We certainly reviewed this. Any final comments from anyone? Yes, Doug
Johnson, representing the Soil and Water Conservation District. My questions are not about tile outlets and the reclassification, so perhaps my questions are warranted after you make a decision here. But my questions are mainly for Tyler on the design specs that I was looking at. I'm working with several landowners who have some projects that are immediately adjacent to the ditch. And several questions that were brought up to me were landowners were wondering whether or not they are going to need to secure any permits from either the Army Corps of Engineers, the Iowa Department of Natural Resources, or the county zoning and environmentalist office for placement of fill in a floodplain or on wetlands. Could you address that, Tyler?
I can. The information, all the information that I've ever received from the Corps of Engineers and from the Iowa DNR is that there's 4 thresholds for when drainage districts are required to get special permits from both the DNR and the Corps of Engineers. Those are I'm boiling them down here quick, but drainage areas over 100 square miles require it. Drainage areas between 10 and 100 square miles that are making improvement changes to the district. So anything that deviates more than 10% from the original plans and specifications, the grade lines and the cross-sectional areas would require additional permitting. Anything, let me see here. I just sent off an email with these. I want to make sure I have them right. 3 exempt are drainage areas in rural locations between 10 and 100 square miles where original grade, cross-sectional area, and other design specifications of a drainage district lawfully established as part of a drainage district formed and operating under the provisions of Iowa Code Chapter 468. And then the last one, exempt drainage areas less than 10 square miles in rural areas and 2 square miles in urban areas. This so this current project is operating under threshold 3 between 10 and 100, where the original design considerations are being held.
Good, okay.
Now,
I guess the other question I'd have maybe for the board here would be, since you maybe didn't address any Floyd County floodplain development permitting requirements, I wanted to make sure landowners knew if they need to acquire a floodplain development permit for the placement of that spoil in any areas that are deemed to be floodplain. So that's maybe more of a question for the supervisors to make these landowners aware of the need for, the lack of the need for acquiring that permit from the county, so that they're meeting all legal obligations.
Would be in that's in our zoning ordinance. Listen, I would almost think that because this is a repair, not an improvement, that I don't know that anything would be required.
Yeah, just want to make landowners aware that they should research that and acquire a permit if it's going to be required by the county. The other questions I had for you, Tyler, were on the design. I was trying to determine the exact location of the planned rock line chutes and the pipe drop structures that are going to convey surface water runoff from the adjacent land down into the ditch. Are those detailed on the plans anywhere? And I'm just not seeing that.
The pipes, from what we found and are planning on replacing, are outlined as what are essentially black tick marks on the plans. The placement of any riprap for side stabilization, we won't know exactly until construction is started. A lot of that is determined based on the locations of sand seams and whether or not there is a loss of structural integrity at the toes. As far as the rock line chutes for the conveyance of surface water, we include that detail so that it is as part of the plans in the event that we need them, but those are a last case alternative for conveyance of water from above the berm into the drainage ditch. That is as a precautionary detail, not as a planned implementation. The desired conveyance of water into the open ditch is through the tile extensions and surface drains, being the larger pipes that go all the way through the berms.
So if I look at the detail, the design in a little more detail, I'll be able to figure out which of those are surface water conveyances.
Yes, the difference is behind them, they will either say TE for tile extension or SD for surface drain.
Thank you. All right. The other question I had too was on the outside spoil bank, we'll call it, there's gonna be a channel where that meets natural ground. And I wasn't able to determine from the design whether or not there's any planned grading to make sure that water doesn't pond and finds its way to all of these planned surface water drainages that'll exit into the ditch. Is it designed to that detail, or is that just?
Yes, the design is to that detail. There are also notes in the plans that contractors are to grade out areas of impounding water.
Okay.
And that the berms, the berms post spoil placement are not to retain any more water than actually the hope is that they retain less water than before the project. We use those spoils to grade out those areas, and where we find additional surface pipes are needed, we will have those installed as well. So the berm will not act as a barrier for water entering the ditch in any way other than directly over the top. We don't want the water to just run right over the top. All the water should be appropriately channeled towards pipes to enter the facility.
Thank you. And the last question I had for you, Tyler, was existing spoil banks that are out there now that have 2-to-1 or steeper slopes on them. In some cases, they're 5 and 6 or more feet higher than the adjacent land. In the design, it's calling for a 10-to-1 outside slope and a 14 to 18 foot top. So could we anticipate that the top of that existing spoil bank is essentially going to be considerably lower than it is now in order to facilitate grading that out to 10-to-1?
The intent of the spoil banks after this project is that they will be traversable and farmable. We run into this on some open channels where the original spoil materials were mounded as part of the original dredging. Those get cut down and blended in with the rest, or the spoil is used to make appropriate transitions.
So that outside spoil bank will be 10-to-1 or flatter. Did I interpret the design correctly with that?
That is the intent, correct.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you.
All right, Tyler, what's the approximate cost of 1,000 foot of this 12-inch tile is to be proposed to be used for the last 20 foot of the private tile?
Let me find my... Let me grab my cost estimate here quickly. My apologies, I did not have the cost estimate up in front of me. The estimate is for $30 a foot for a total cost of $30,000.
So the installation of that in addition to that, what's that gonna cost to put it in?
That's pipe cost, installation, that's everything.
Okay,
That dollar amount takes all that into account.
we're estimating $30,000 to purchase and install 1,000 feet of 12-inch pipe, and then thinking that some of that will be less than that because that size of the diameter.
Correct.
All right, so that's what we're talking about here today, $30,000. You want to reassess this district and have the time that's involved in that for $30,000. David, go ahead.
Doug had my question mostly answered with what you're doing with the outside berm elevations. Currently, we have well over a mile of filter strips that are level. And the water from the field comes off to the filter strips, does not go into drainage ditch, but goes down the filter strips. Sounds like we're gonna lose all those. They are non-CRP filter strips. And I'm a little bit disappointed if all of a sudden they're going away with this 10-to-1 elevation. Is there any way we can adjust the plan so we can keep our filter strips?
Do you have a question, Tyler?
I did. I'm thinking on the matter.
Just look in section 30.
Section 30.
Okay, expired on those.
The district. Okay, so there's that. The district has to preserve its right to get rid of spoil material in a cost-effective way. But if there is the possibility of avoiding certain areas or minimizing the impacts, those are, in my opinion, appropriate things to do and to consider. As far as a major change to the plans to avoid certain areas, I don't see that as being necessary. My recommendation for the payment of damages has also always been the consideration of payment not only for crops, but any sort of reseeding for buffers, whether they're CRP programs or not. The district is under no obligation to pay within the right-of-ways, but the code does not say that they cannot consider damages for those buffers. If it is a matter of elevation that is your main concern, I believe that can be worked around or addressed as part of the field engineering.
Yeah, Doug.
Johnson, I guess, whether it's CRP or not, I'd have this question for the landowners. Would they each individually then need to submit a claim for the damage to their CRP seeding or their privately held seeding?
As part of the completion report and as part of the project, we survey off, measure, and provide an estimate of damages for the completion as part of the completion report. Those are then our recommendations for the district's consideration for damage payments. If landowners that have been impacted by the project feel that they have additional claims or would like a higher dollar amount figured, they have the right to object and be heard at the completion hearing. The impacted landowners, as part of a project closeout, are notified. They have notice mailed to them of the time and place for the hearing, and that they have their right to object for future or for additional damages rather. So that is to say, would they have to object? Not if they're satisfied with the estimate of damages that is already provided.
At that final project hearing, that's when the, if there are any change orders and cost overrun, the project are presented as well.
At that completion hearing is when the determination for the payment of retainage is brought about. For any additional items, significant increases in items, any change orders that way, that will be brought to the board, to the trustees immediately. That does not get, we do not wait on those. And those change orders must also be approved before the work is done. So if we come into a situation where we need an item that isn't specified, we need sizes that aren't specified, or we need a significant addition to pipe quantities, anything that is going to have a substantial change to the project, that is brought to the trustees before it is done. That does not wait till the completion.
All right, that's an important clarification. Thank you. Auditor Carr?
I just wanted to mention a couple other things that I emailed Tyler on, are people who would like to have leftover dirt. We've received notice from David Bledsoe, which I included you in on, that has area outside of the ditch. If there's anything extra in spoils that could go to, as well as last week, Alan McGregor farms ground that's owned by David McCartney, and they have a spot that's directly parallel to the ditch area. If there's any spoils that, you know, in lieu of maybe putting it on a, what you're talking about, that maybe he could, there's other areas that maybe that excess dirt could go to rather than building up possibly. If a contractor worked that out with those property owners.
Yes, in my experience, that has always been a matter of permission from the trustees, as well as private agreements between the landowners and the contractors, as that it would be work outside of the contract specifications.
Yes.
I just have one last comment as a recommendation to the landowners and operators adjacent to the ditch where any spoil will be placed, that they be diligent in doing two things. One would be, if it's a CRP contract, that they acquire a waiver from Farm Security Agency to allow that spoil placement to be placed. And then secondarily, that any landowner or operator who's going to have fill placed on any land, that they determine whether or not that's going to convert a wetland that may already have been determined to be a wetland per the Food Security Act, and whether that would affect their USDA program of eligibility. So just a note that they should check into that.
All right, we've heard the discussion, talked about the consequences of changing the specifications in the bid, talked about how much that might cost, talked about what the cost of the 20-foot extensions of the private line into the ditch is, approximately $30,000. It's time to make a decision. Is there a motion regarding review and action regarding the acceptance of the Drainage District Number 3 main open ditch project specifications as filed by Bolton Mink? Understand, a motion and a second and an affirmative vote approves this project as it is. And takes out the possibility that we've been discussing for the most of the morning, which is a private assessment of that last 20 foot on the landowners.
I'll make a motion to accept the specifications filed by Bolton Lake for Drainage District number 3 main open ditch project.
I'll second the motion. Further discussion. This time amongst the board, we will hear from any landowner one more time. Or we'll hear from Joe Coach if he wants to talk one more time.
I'm
All right. Further discussion on the board. Anyone in the audience?
If
Yes.
they're gonna be,
Okay, first of all,
okay, go ahead, yeah.
we've got Merlin Schweitzer.
Yes,
Yes.
and if you pass this, this will turn in just like the damn courthouse did. It'll be so many changeovers that it'll cost us way more money.
Scott Anders.
And I actually just got involved looking at what had transpired, piggybacking off of what Mr. Schweitzer just said, exactly what had happened with the law enforcement center. It was an open checkbook. Are you guys passing this? You're passing an open checkbook. And then what about the can of worms if you need to go past the 20? This isn't that 30,000. That'll be a blip. You got no controls over it. No controls. So that's why if you're gonna do anything on this, and I do agree something needs to get done, but if you're gonna do anything on this, the wording needs to be changed by Tyler to have it changed on there where it says that you will bill back for the private property portion. That's all that needs to be done. That is all.
Just one thing, you know, it's totally up to you guys, and the ditch needs to be clean, no doubt about it. The main thing is try to get your arms around these change orders so that your costs don't get out of hand. The one thing that I'm confused on now is when a private landowner approaches the contractor to move the dirt to his deal. I didn't hear Gloria saying she had a problem with that when it comes to how does she pay the contractor? How does that happen? That dirt removal is no different than the private tile deal. But she didn't make any comment towards, oh, well, we can't pay for that because that's private. Do you see what I'm saying? That's all I want to make clear to you, that I heard on both sides of the fence.
So all I'm asking proper enough is that when you just have to have it rewritten where it says it go up to the 20 feet in to on private property, but it will be back built out to the private part. That's all you have to do. And if it has to go beyond the 20, but at least at a minimum, then that portion will get built back out to the private landowner. Done.
All right, final discussion on the board.
To respond to Joe's comment, I'm not sure that the contractor's gonna move that dirt over there. I don't know if that was talked about. They just wanted requesting to have it placed there. Maybe they'll haul it over there themselves. You know, really wasn't talked about how it was going to get
right.
I
don't disagree with you.
So I would.
When was this first project first started? When was this first brought before the Board of Supervisors?
At least a year and a half ago. A year and a half ago when Bolton and me got involved.
So at this point, all
yeah. Excuse me.
You got my point. All you have to do is go back and change the word.
Understood. Got it. I see a lot of farmers who are frustrated with the fact that the ditch isn't working properly and hasn't been working properly for a long, long time. I mean, when the issue of the beaver dams, and it hasn't been addressed by the previous board. And we're at a point now, we're talking about another cropping season. It's hard for me to say that the assessment has currently been made by Bolton and Mink as equitable when it amounts to $30,000 cost. There's value in time and money in cropping systems. Far exceeds the $30,000 where we're arguing if it's going to be, you're arguing, if it's going to be assessed to the landowners or to the district. If this is a time-proven method that has been done for a long time, I think that, and the timeliness of this outweighs this. I hate to see this go back to another round of reassessment and reclassification that the engineers have a hard time even understanding what it could be. That's why I'm going to support it as it is. Further comments from any of the board before we vote?
I have none.
All right. Anyone listening on the phone?
Yes.
Yes. Name your, who's this? Bob Goodwin. Go ahead, Bob.
Yes, this is Bob Goodwin.
Yeah, do you have a comment before we're on final passage of review and action?
No, I don't.
Okay, then.
I don't.
Those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Vote for or abstain or oppose? Did you vote? You're opposed. 2 votes aye, 1 vote opposed, the motion is carried. Second item is review and action regarding the notice to bidder setting the date for bid construction. What's the time requirements for that?
It has to be published in 2 consecutive weeks in newspapers. So Tyler and I had talked about this, chime in Tyler here if you want to, but if we could get it to the notice to the newspaper, which dates have to be changed from what was originally provided. The plan was we could, if I can get it to the newspaper by noon today, it can go to be in the Charles City Press on either tomorrow or Friday, and the North Springs paper on Wednesday if we're after, for the first week, and then the following week as well. If we're after that, it'll be next week's paper for the North Springs Register anyway. And Tyler, I think you were talking about bids could be open September 14th and considered for the Board of Supervisors on September 18th. But if we can't make that newspaper deadline, we might have to push that out a little bit more. I just want to take a break from getting invitations out. Those the dates we talked about, Tyler?
Yes, I felt because the notice needs to be published once a week for 2 consecutive weeks. So if we really rush, the fastest would be potentially the 7th, but that being the week, the Labor Day week, and really being a tall ask for getting notices out, I felt the 14th for an opening, with the consideration on the 18th being the most appropriate.
All right, so a motion would be setting the date of what? Others are.
Can I get it in the newspaper by noon?
Well, yeah,
Take a little
good.
break. Do you have everything ready in the notice, Tyler, or?
As soon as I have these dates, the notice will be sent to you.
Okay. Then I can,
All right.
if we could go with that for those dates, or
All right, restate the.
actually what you would set would be is approving the notice to bidder, which was in an original packet. But with the opening of the bids on bids due the 14th and considered by the board on the 18th.
Yes, times typically accompany that as well. So if it was like the 14th at say 10 o'clock, that all the bids had to be in by.
And does the time for the consideration need to be on there as well?
The consideration is less important. That would just be at the regularly scheduled board meeting.
Okay. If you said September 14th at 10 a.m. for the notice to bidders for bids to be due and considered by the board on September 18th.
The bids come into the auditor's office.
Yes.
All right.
Make a motion to set the notice for bidding the Drainage District 3 contract project due just the 14th of September, 10 o'clock in the auditor's office with review on the 18th at the regular meeting.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Supervisor Burgess, and second by Keeper to accept the dates of the notice of bidder and for restatement.
So I've got the notice to bidders with bids to be due September 14th at 10 a.m. to the auditor's office and bids considered for approval by the board on September 18th.
All right, further discussion? Those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is carried. Item C, review and action regarding the interest rate on the stamp warrants, assessments to property owners, including waiver terms and interest rates. Yeah, there's our review that section of this action item.
So this would be for the project warrants. Typically you do 5% on those stamp warrants. And assessments to property owners. This is a large project. This would be how long you would allow property owners to spread the assessments. So they could be 10 years, no less than 10 years, no more than 20 years. And with another project that we did a while back that was a large dollar like this, we did 20 years. And that assessment rate if property owners choose that and have assessments of $500 or more, they could assess those for, I would suggest, up to 20 years at 5%. And yeah, that'd be the waiver.
So both of them would have a 5% interest rate.
Yeah.
All right.
Bob, am I missing anything on that if you're still on there? Or?
Lori, are you addressing me?
Yes. Anything I'm missing there?
No, I think everything is appropriate.
All right, is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion to approve the interest rate on stamped warrants, assessments to property owners, including waiver terms and interest rates, 5% for 10 years, and also 5% for 20 years.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved by Supervisor Keeper, seconded by Jordan, to set the interest rate on the stamp warrants, assessment to property owners, and including waiver terms and the interest rate of 5%, term of 20 years. Further discussion? Those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is carried. Thank you for the discussion. Item number 9, wind turbine projects. We have a presentation by Nexter Energy. Thank you.
Where would you like me to sit or stand?
It's fine.
Stay or?
You heard it in the microphone.
Great, thank you. Well, first off, I'd just like to thank the board for the time and allow me the opportunity to present a project or a project that we're working on in Floyd County. First off, I'm with NextEra Energy Resources. We're a company based out of Juno Beach, Florida, but we do have projects across the country, as you'll see, and we do have a number of projects in Iowa. My name is Tom Trahern. I've just from an experience perspective, I worked for the city of Marion in Iowa for 21 years as a community development director, and recently moved into the energy sector. So I still reside in Marion. I was born in Burlington, so I'm an Iowa guy. There's a few of us in the company that are from the area, so I think that helps me understand things. You know, while we may be based in Juno Beach, I do have knowledge and understanding of Iowa and the area. So I've been very excited to be in this industry, and I'm excited about the opportunity that it is to bring projects such as a wind project to Floyd County and other counties across the state. Apologize for not having a presentation, but I think everybody got a handout. If you go to page 2, just a little bit about NextEra. We're a leading clean energy company and a leader in several clean energy technologies. We're a Fortune 200 company, part of the S&P 100, and we have more than 147 billion in market capitalization. We're the largest market share of U.S. wind capacity as well as solar capacity, and we're one of the largest electricity producers from natural gas, and one of the largest in nuclear as well. I think this shows that our portfolio is very diverse. We've got multitudes of projects and different types, and we're very proud of what we've done across the country and excited about opportunities that we can bring to Iowa and have brought. If you go to the next page, as I had said, we've invested across North America. We've got projects all over the place, and I know the map's kind of small and it's difficult to see. This isn't about how many projects we've done or where we've done them or the type. Really, what I just want to illustrate is that we're a company that can go through with our promises to build projects. We have the capital, we have the capacity, we've got the track record, and we've really made that known. As you can see from our portfolio, we have the ability to really build what we say we're going to build. So we've got $95 billion U.S. capital investment, and we're the 5th largest capital investor in the U.S. According in 2020. Here in Iowa, we've got 13 projects, and just west, we have one in Cerro Gordo. We did a repower not long ago where we had a number of turbines. They were built about 20 years ago. We went through a process and repowered that project. We feel it was very successful. We've got other projects in the northeast part of the state or the north central part of the state. And what we've done in the past is we've brought folks in, or the folks that are working in those projects, to kind of speak to others if there's questions or comments. We're very proud of our track record, and we have people that I think can speak to the projects we've done and how we've done them in the area, so they're not very far away. We've invested more than $3.4 billion in Iowa, and we're looking to double or triple that in the near future. Currently, we pay $13 million in property taxes annually to the state, and nearly $8 million annually to Iowa landowners in the form of lease agreements. So we've got a big stake in the game, and we're really trying to make projects happen here in Iowa. One thing I'd like to point out, not only in our portfolio, but just how we do business. We're about partnerships. Just this week, we've reached out to 3 nonprofits in the area. We're trying to get involved. We like to be a community member and a partner. I like to be able to wear my shirt and walk around the community and have people know who we are in a positive light, and be a part of the chamber, to be a part of events. We sponsored the fair here, and a number of fairs in the area. We just really like to be a part of the community, and that's just part of the culture at NextEra. And I think as we start to go through this process and developing a project, you'll see us and our name probably more prevalently now that you know who I am, and you'll see it probably a little bit better. But we invest our time and dollars in local community, we engage stakeholders, and we really strive to mitigate impacts to both habitat and wildlife as we do our projects. We're not gonna probably get into much of it today, but when we're developing a wind project, there are a number of impacts that we need to mitigate as a part of that project. It takes a lot to put turbines in the air and on the ground. I noticed the conversation on tile and drainage. That's a big thing for us. We want to make sure that when we work with the farming community that we do that correctly. That is very important to us, that we take care of the folks that we're partnering with and putting projects together on. So just so you guys know that, you know, we like to do things the right way. And you may ask why we're here. Why here? And I'm sure you guys, I'm not the first guy that's been to the county probably talking about a wind project. I know there's turbines in the county, and there's been projects in and around the area. And if it wasn't me, it's going to be somebody else. As I understand, there's another company that's going to be presenting to the board as well. So the primary reasons for that is there's a strong and consistent wind level in north central Iowa. And I think that's apparent as you drive across the state. You'll see that the wind resource is quite strong. Actually, Iowa is the second largest producer of wind energy in the country, and a great percentage of the energy that is produced in Iowa is wind. The availability and proximity to electricity transmission lines. There's transmission in the area. There's some capacity in those, and so that brings us to these areas where we can actually hook into the grid and make a profit from selling electricity. And speaking of that, someone to buy the power. So we need people to buy power, and we're in an area where that is something that's an option. The final one, and the most important one, is participating landowners. And that's what we're doing right now. We're in the very front end side of talking with property owners in the county to determine their level of interest and desire to see a project. That's why we're here today, is, you know, let you guys know that we're interested in developing a project, and we're right at the very beginning of it. So we're meeting with property owners, engaging interest at this point. We've had a couple coffee meetings for the project in the northwest side of the county, and we're getting good feedback, and we're just proceeding with those meetings and to determine what kind of project we can bring forward. Really, the project that we're talking about is Rudd Wind, and these are. I'm gonna walk through a couple bullet points. These are like what we would like to see. We'd love to see a 300 megawatt project, which could mean up to 100 turbines. Are we going to get there? We don't know that until we know what kind of property owner participation we're going to have. So this is kind of a high level goal, you might say, as we start looking at projects. It takes 5 years to develop a project. I know on your agenda there's a discussion about the ordinance and how you're regulating and when. By no means are we going to be in here in 3 months or 6 months for a permit. It's going to be a while, and we're happy to work with you and alongside you as you look at your ordinances, be a provider of feedback, an opportunity to hey, this is what we're thinking. These are concerns we have. We're more than willing to be a part of that process. Hopefully, I've looked at your ordinance. You got I believe it's a conditional use permitting process that we go through for issuance of a permit. But just so you know, we're here, and we're not here to tell you that tomorrow we're going to submit a proposal and try to get it in under the wire or anything like that. Or we want to work alongside you. Primarily because there are a number of studies that need to take place: environmental studies, avian bird counts. There's wetlands, all the issues that we're talking about with the drainage. We've got to deal with those just as much as well. We need to understand the water systems, the wildlife, energy transmission. There's just a whole host of things that we have to be very cognizant of before we even move forward with the project. At the earliest, we build a project in 2028. That's the earliest. The projects last 30 to 50 years. And one thing to note is that turbine, in a lot of counties, the question of how much ag ground is going to be removed for production as a part of these projects. It's about an acre per turbine. The actual footprint of the turbine is not that big, and the roadway is when it's all said and done, is not that large, and farmers are able to farm right up to the base of the turbine alongside the roadway. We found that many farmers really like the roadway once it's there because it's a solid place to harvest and get in when the fields are wet and get out. So there's some benefits to it as much as there are some of those issues with removing ag from the production. Just as a sample timeline on the next page, land leasing 23-24, trying to get into the queue, which is where we have to essentially apply to them to MISO to get into the queue, which is our onset under the grid. 23-26 on-site studies between now and a couple years. Local permitting 25-26. I'm assuming it's going to take some time to get through that through the permitting. Construction 28 and operations to begin at 28. That's best case scenario. Everything goes swimmingly and we're able to move forward quickly. Interestingly enough, the construction process we do in one season, so we can get in and get out. Even with the number of turbines that we were talking about, we generally like to have construction done in one season, 9 months, and that way we can not impact the community. It's pretty impactful during that 9 months, but when it's done, we're done. And so there's not it's not an ongoing process. I'm sure you, and the county's probably seen this with the other project as well. And again, just to reinforce who we are, we're a values-based company, and we value partnerships and being a part of the community. The core values of the company are very simple. As a corporate culture, we're committed to excellence. We do the right thing, and we treat people with respect. And I think those are three great core values of any company, but I think we truly do live it. I've heard stories from other projects in Iowa where, particularly that we do the right thing and to treat people with respect. We're working in projects. I think you'll find that our land team that talks to folks are cordial, respectful. Even those that aren't interested, our goal is to say that's fine and move on. We're not out there to badger people, threaten people, or do any of that. We're interested in people that want to partner with us and build a project together. Tile is a big thing in Iowa, and we've got examples over in Cerro Gordo where we have terms that are in our agreements, and we may have dry years during those terms, and then we have a really wet year, and then there's problems. So we generally have operations folks. Especially if we have a project this size, we're going to have operations folks in the area, and they're going to work with the landowners to ensure that anything that's our responsibility is taken care of. And I think that's just important for the board to know, and those that are listening about who we are and how we operate. With that, I really didn't have a whole lot more to talk about. I just wanted to get in front of the board, let you know who I am, a little bit more about NextEra. You guys all have my business card. I'd be happy to answer questions if you have them outside the meeting. And we'll just continue to keep in contact. And if you have questions for me, I'd be more than willing to answer. I know you've had a long meeting.
Any questions from the board regarding the proposed project?
Do you have a targeted area in the red area, specific sites?
We're just up in that northwest quadrant of the county right now, like in the north side of the red area at this point. So, so it's kind of the landowner participation is a big part of it, and that ebbs and flows. So as we talk to people, it may go further west, it may go further east.
Could you talk a little bit about how you're going to get the power from the turbines to the to the grid, you're gonna have to go a fair distance, right?
So, once the turbine placements are set, there'll be collection lines that are all underground. Those collection lines will go to a collector sub, which we have not targeted a location for that. And then that collection sub, it's generally overhead lines to the point of interconnection. And that's generally in a larger transmission facility. So we're currently evaluating the different options for those right now.
Okay.
Yep. So we try to keep everything underground. It should all be on private property until the collection sub, and then we'll have to pop up out of the ground for that.
All right. Thanks.
Yep.
How big are these units? 300 megawatt capacities, 100 turbines?
It's about 2.8 megawatts.
And how tall is a 2.8 megawatt turbine?
At this point, we're trying to. There's two sizes at this point where it's about the 500-foot size, and they can get up to 599. If you get up past 600, you really start getting into airspace issues. So, yep. That's a big part of the project too, is understanding the airspace and not wanting to enter any of the thresholds that would cause problems with DoD or FAA. And extensive studies are done to ensure that those things are any issues there are mitigated ahead of time.
So you mentioned that like the 30 to 50-year project time span. Are those easements 30 to 50 years?
They are.
Yep. Do you what's an easement offer to a landowner for a project like this?
I think at this point we'd like to keep that a little more between the company and the property owners at this point. But yeah, that's. But we feel they're good terms and they're competitive in the market.
Of course, these are voluntary.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Jim, this is over in your district. What are you hearing from your constituents about this? I know I'm here.
2 or 3 at least. I know they got some questions, but I think there's some people that have signed up. I think there's some that are reserved and want to know more, and I know there's some that don't want any. So kind of all over the board, I heard of a few unconfirmed neighbors that were involved with it, but I don't know exactly yet for sure who talks cheap,
Mark, is it appropriate for us to ask a question, or?
I think it is, yes. Just tell us who you are, and of course we know who you are, but
Erwin Johnson. I live off in that quadrant you were talking about, a little close to it. My understanding is Mid-America built 52 generators out here. And the reason it wasn't 60 or 70, it was because of the transmission line issue. They filled up to what that capacity is. I also have been contacted by an outfit called Sue Green. Sue Green's proposing to build a underground transmission line from Mason City to somewhere south of Chicago, I believe. Does this next entity, I guess my question for you is there a connection between Sue Green and Next Energy on the transmission of electricity?
There could be. I mean, we look at all options. There's a number of options for that interconnection to occur.
Okay, so there's no formal relationship?
No.
It's interesting in being approached about putting underground transmission lines, being approached by wind generators. CO2, yeah.
We're not associated with this.
Well, thanks for that. I wanted to ask that question.
I have a question, a couple of questions actually.
Yes, yes, your name
Brenda
please.
Larson. So we've had representatives out talking to us. We are also being cut in the middle with CO2. So what is your plan for trying to build around the CO2 pipelines if we don't get them stopped?
I honestly, I don't have an answer for that. I don't think that I don't know that there's a bearing on us. I mean, we're gonna attempt to build our project as a project.
But won't you, I mean, to build your project around the area you're talking, the lateral pipeline is gonna go right through you.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point, you're gonna have to take transmission lines and cross their pipeline.
Yeah, and if those, if they work that through, then we'll have to negotiate those easements with whoever owns them. Yeah.
But what if they say no?
Then we'll go around. We'll figure it out.
How are you gonna go around? So that's what I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah.
Because you have to go from turbine to turbine.
We will. Yeah, but it's no different than if we have a property owner that's between two turbines and we can't get an easement from them. We have to figure out whether that turbine's a viable turbine, or if we try to locate it somewhere else where we can go there. I mean, we're gonna try and build the project that we could build. We understand that there's limitations and that come up. When you look at the siting requirements of what we have to do, it's actually there aren't a lot of places for the turbines. It may seem like it when you drive the countryside and you see all of the turbines, but understanding between the height constraints, environmental constraints, avian eagle's nest, I mean, there are a whole host of items that we have to work through to actually make a project happen. That's just another one of the variables that we'll have to work through.
So that brings me to another question. How far back do you have to be from Eagle's Nest? Because there's 3 of them within 2 miles of my house.
So that's a really good question. We don't have a specific number of miles, but I will say that we work with the local, state, and federal agencies to ensure that whenever we're siting, that we're maintaining those appropriate setbacks. And the reason I don't have a specific number is because there isn't a specific number that's hard and fast. So there's we have environmental consultants that we use that site them. They go out and find them, site them, and then they work with the appropriate agencies to ensure that we're doing things above board and correctly.
So doesn't Iowa have a 1 mile setback minimum?
They may, but Fish and Wildlife may have a larger one. And so we work with all the agencies to ensure that we're doing it appropriately.
And is that since the $8 million penalty you had to pay for killing eagles?
That's I can't really speak to that issue, but I can tell you that that's what we do now.
So just FYI, they've done it before.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Chair recognizes Larry Boris.
What would the setback from a property line or a household property line be on a wind tower of that size?
Honestly, I was in this next part of this kind of agenda item was kind of a review of the current wind turbine ordinance requirements. And I see we have the chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission here, so I was going to yield to him to explain some of those things.
I was wondering.
We actually have it.
I was really wondering if they had something that they went by.
Oh, I don't know about theirs. I'm just talking about what's currently in the county code, which is 115% of the height of the turbine plus the highest point that one of the blades gets to. Set back from that, but there's about 10 things that I thought we'd have Dean go over if he's here to regarding the ordinance. But that's currently what it is. It says the base of the large wind energy system tower shall be set back from all property lines, property right of ways, and above ground public utility lines at a distance of not less than 115% total extended height of the tower. That's what's currently in
the extended height of these towers was, what did you say, 5?
The highest we would go would be the 599, but I believe the project right now we're about 500.
But that's the tower height, that's not including the blade, right?
the way I read the zoning ordinance is that it's like Mark said, little total height of the facility or of the machine. You know?
That'd be tip height.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be the tip height. Yep. Your 500 feet.
Actually, this is on page 25 of the county zoning ordinance. It's broken into two things: small wind energy systems and large wind energy systems.
And to your point, generally, and to answer the gentleman's question, we generally defer to the county. There's usually ordinances in place where we go. It varies across the state. The ordinances that have the comparable to a percentage of a setback, those help, because if there is a repower or one's taller, then you're getting that proportional setback. There's some places that set it just as a nominal, this is what it is. So, but we work in several counties, and every county seems to have a different setback. So
We kind of drifted off into the second half. That's fine. It's a review. We're not really saying we're considering a rewrite of our ordinance. This has just been brought up to us by constituents who wanted to talk more about the project. And so we just thought, instead of talking about a specific ordinance in another county, we just have a brief review of what Floyd County currently has. So, Dean, is there anything? We just touched on number one thing.
Concern of constituents is the setback distance. Again, that's at 115. I haven't checked with other counties on their ordinances. Most of the other things are, it's concerning drawings. Obviously, it all has to be engineered properly. You've probably seen the ordinance, you've read it over.
it's been a while since I've looked at specifics. But
They have to comply with all federal and FAA regulations, and the one that maybe affects landowners more than anything, and especially neighboring ones, is the sound thing, the noise emission from it. And so that's kind of a vague thing. I don't know how you measure that. Our ordinance really doesn't specifically say a decibel reading or anything like that. But they can, yes.
So, further discussion, comments, questions for Tom? We do plan on having Inver Energy come in at some point in time and talk to us a little bit about their project, and go from there.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
All right. No further questions for anyone? All right. Very good. Well, then the next item is this discussion regarding law enforcement center courthouse project accounting and reporting. At our last meeting, we discussed, in fact, I asked Auditor Carr if she was ready for a complete accounting of the total expenses with the entire law enforcement center and courthouse project, and she said she was, and she is. As we set the meetings for the Board of Supervisors, it was actually Thursday that Auditor Carr and I discussed this a little more in detail. When you look back at this project, I can't see of a project that has had more, it has been a project that has changed the course of Floyd County's future more than the law enforcement center courthouse update and changes. And so I think that needs a little more than just a review of the expenses. And so what I'm proposing to today to the board members, something they haven't heard. Gloria Carr and I talked about it a little bit. Because when you look at this project, I was part of the project. I was part of this project until December 31st, 2019. I was on the Board of Supervisors when the original need came up, and we discussed Delbert Longley, discussed the requirements in the jail were of the nature that we couldn't go on to continue to have the jail. So I'm part of this project. So what I'm going to propose is a thorough, not only accounting of the money, but kind of a review of this project, because it really changed the course of Floyd County. Very briefly, I'll get into that. But just the facts. Just want everybody to know when we're done with this project, what we cost, how those decisions were made, and why. And you can make your own discussions regarding that. But so what I'm proposing is I would lead with that discussion up until December 31st of 2019 when I left the board. What was the original cost when it went out to the public to bid? What did we sell this project at? What happened? And I'd lead that discussion till the time I left the board on December 31st, 2019. At that point, Auditor Carr would take over a discussion, talked about what has happened in that time period between now and December 31st of 2022. At that point in time, this new board was elected. And we essentially appointed Dennis Kiefer to be in charge of, in large part, of finishing the project. He's the one that dealt with the change orders originally and primarily. And so I'd like Supervisor Kiefer to tell us about what's happened in the last 8.5 months of this project. That's basically my proposal. We'd have this ready for you next week. We'll have all the numbers of what it cost, what it took, what has happened. And you deserve that. A large part of this job is being accountable to the taxpayers. We made decisions today that were based on accountability, and I think it's fair, and I think that taxpayers deserve to know what happened and why. So that's what I'm proposing. Complete accounting, all the dollars that were spent, including land acquisition costs, including the cost to the county of the lawsuit. There were costs to the lawsuit. And how did that break down? How much did the county pay? Project's been going on a long time. We just need to let, on a sheet of paper, everybody know what it costs. And I'm doing this and I'm proposing this because I think it's very important for us to move forward. We're nearing the very completion of it. We're pretty proud of what we got. It took a long time to get here. It costs a lot more than we thought. But there's a time to see what it costs and move forward with it. And that's my idea. That's why it changed a little bit since last time, but we were just gonna have Auditor Carr put out the numbers. I just think we need to just talk a little bit about it. There should be some lessons we learned from this, really should. That's my idea for your discussion.
Well, I agree with you, Mark, we need to do it. Public is asking questions, they wanna know, they want answers. And we need to get them some information.
I think the information would be good to get accurate and get it out and get it shared. But like you said, there are curiosity people that want to know and can know and deserve to know. So.
I've got all the costs in here, however you wanna review that. Let me know how I can help you with your part of it.
Okay.
We talked about change orders. How many change orders were there? Why do you think that will happen? You know, just kind of like complete accounting. And I think people of Floyd County deserve it. I think they appreciate it. Gordon Bogie.
Will this include like what Young Plumbing and Heating got and what Samuel's Group got? Will you divide this out by contractors too? So we know how much money went out of the county on this project?
The pay apps are lumped contractors. I have, I don't have it split by how much went to Young, how much, we have original contracts with several providers, but some things but everything was paid through Samuel's Group. Samuel Group's sent us a bill, we paid the bill, they paid the contractors. So we didn't pay those contractors. Samuel's Group paid them through the project. We paid Samuel's Group.
So the public will never know what Young Plumbing and Heating got.
Well, I could add a list too of the contracts that were provided. If you
But
want.
you don't know if it's overrun or change orders?
Oh, yeah, it's all on every pay app. It's on every single pay app that's been paid to a contractor. You're just asking it to be broken down. And I don't have that broken down by every contractor, but there's change order contracts that the board signed for every one of those. So it's doable. It's just not, I provided what's been paid to Samuel's Group. Is what I have.
Is that,
and they paid the.
is that something where you can get the breakout from what you have, or is that something that we'd have to?
Yeah, it's every contract and every change order.
Yeah, some type of pivot table.
Yeah, so like a change order may affect, it might have been a change order that might have affected Young Plumbing as well as Paulson Electric. Because maybe someone had electrical part of a change order and someone had the plumbing part of it. Or wiring for plumbing work or something like that. Might have two different contractors. I didn't have it planned on going that way. I do have a conference Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday also. So we'll have to do this today and tomorrow to get it all done. I know you're gonna be busy. Yeah, I would tell you board stuff. So however, if that's how you want it, you can split it out by pay apps and have it that way and contracts for that. Every pay app listed.
Well, the reason I asked that question is because some of the area contractors, HVAC guys, plumbing guys, or whatever, would really like to know how far off the bid they were. How far did this thing fall off the tracks?
Well, yeah, and I can say that many of them are probably upside down on the project because we locked in prices in 2019.
The public would like to know that.
I won't know if they're on, I mean, they all got to bid on it, had an opportunity to bid on it, but I mean, I don't think you can take that and a change order because of whatever reason for a change order. You wouldn't be able to compare that number to what another local contractor may have bid because they would have had a change order as well. So it's not apples. You're not looking at apples to apples if you're looking at apples and oranges.
You can't do that anymore because of the timeline.
What do you mean by the timeline?
From when it started to where it finished.
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, I'm not asking, I'm saying you cannot take what got actually paid and compare it to what was bid because of all the timeline.
You can because we locked in prices pre-COVID.
Yes.
That's why a lot of them say they're upside down on this.
Yeah.
So I mean, so that's what I can compare you with.
Yep.
What they locked in, what they contracted for. Yeah, I think we're fortunate in that part that we were able to lock prices in pre-COVID.
So, to that point, is that something that the board thinks we need to break out into specific by contractor or just by change order or pay out? That might take a little more time.
Yeah, and again, I don't know if you guys are going to ISAC or not because this week also. So I guess maybe we need to if you're looking for that much more detail, maybe we need to push it another week out.
I'm just, obviously, we got some interest in this, and so, you know, if we don't have the time, it might take another week. If that's what, the public wants to know, I think let's let the public know what they asked for. Then the goal of this is, okay, here it is. You can make your own judgment on whatever it took, but here it is. And just the facts. We're here. We want you to know what the project costs you. This is not an exercise to point fingers at. This is just what happened. You know, how did this happen? You know, when I say it changed the course of Floyd County government, we're elected in districts now, in large part because of what happened. I don't plan on reviewing all of those details. You know, public budget hearings. I don't plan on getting into all of that and going over all that material. It's just, but the fact remains, that's what changed the course of this. It's true. We know it. So perhaps if this is going to take another week, we want to put this on our agenda for, well, the next agenda item, we're going to talk about if we're even going to have a meeting on Monday after Labor Day or the Tuesday after Labor Day. Labor Day is coming up, so that's the next agenda item. So we're the ones that are providing the information. What would you like to see?
I think you can do that. Ms. Jordan asked for the contractors. I think that'd be appropriate to break that out. If it's going to take more time, I'm going to let us spend any more time we have to, but seems fair and valid.
You just need more time.
Right.
Just need more time. So.
I think that it's no secret that most of the money that was spent on this project left the county. And there may be a good reason for that. And maybe that was a blessing for some of the contractors that didn't get involved with it too. You know, there's two ways to look at that, but it's kind of a shame maybe that most of the money left the county. I'd like to see a breakdown of Dean Snyder, Pulse Electric, Samuels Group, Young Plumbing and Heating, Coal Excavating, whoever had a contract to do work here. What it costs.
Sounds like we've got a consensus on that. Further discussion, any comments from anyone? Anyone listening on the phone like to make a comment regarding this final accounting and reporting to the citizens of Floyd County? All right, well, we can talk about when we're going to get it done. Sounds like we'll probably not get it done by our next meeting because it's going to take a little work and we've got some other things we'll be working on in the meantime. Let's move on to item 11, the discussion regarding whether to have a board meeting and pay claims during the week of Labor Day.
Gathering stuff. September 1. September 8, this year.
No, it's September 4th is Monday. So having a meeting on the 5th or Tuesday is a possibility, or just not having it at all.
Would there be a lot of AFs, signatures that were claims, I'm sorry, yeah.
That's where I asked him to be on the agenda now so that department, you know, we used to only pay claims twice a month. Now we're paying them every week. We just need to give those departments notice and make sure they get claims in by the 28th, for the 28th claim run, and not having a meeting on following.
Okay.
It used to be the second and fourth Tuesday of every month.
I have a conflict on the 5th. 9 o'clock in the morning.
You understand?
Well, let's get maybe the departments ahead of, submit your plans by the 28th, so we can approve them then. Is that what you're suggesting? Maybe next week already?
Yeah, and I would send them notice, if you decide you're not gonna have a meeting the week of Labor Day, I just send them a notice, all department heads a notice saying, make sure you get anything that's timely to us by the for the August 28th claim run, otherwise the next claim run wouldn't be until September 11th.
Maybe some signature claims come up. That's what I was suggesting.
All right. That's when we're to schedule our next board meeting after Labor Day then. Which would be September 11th. Number 12, no resignation of the conservation temporary employee and child support recovery employee. We had a summer employee of the conservation department that's doing mowing. Resigned. And the child support recovery, who's that?
That is Sandy Northrop. Sandy Northrop is in the packet there. So this is, we've talked about this. She turned this in quite a while ago, but I thought, well, I might as well wait till it gets closer to that date for her resignation. She's retiring. Her retirement leaves us with one child support recovery employee for the region. They do not, I believe there's, in your packet, I included the letters from who she's been reporting to, and they do not plan to fill that position or any of the other retirements that they've had. They have 2 other retirements this year. So it's down to 1. So I think what's happening is with the way the state is transitioning departments, that once this one employee that's left decides to retire, the state's gonna do it all through. Yeah. The different department, child support, collections, but I think it'll just be absorbed by the state. One of the employees that resigned took a state position with child support recovery, and they didn't fill that position last year. Direction they're going. So then the cooperative agreement with the 7 counties, I would presume it just goes away. I don't know what it would be. That's for personnel and training or something. That's the only thing we pay out of that Department 35. Remember his wages and
Well, see,
which
all right.
doesn't happen very often.
Board knows the resignation of the 2 employees. Anything further there? Okay. That's all we need to do. All right.
Yep.
Future agenda items. All right, then essentially we'd have this accounting and reporting would be on September 11th because we're going to have time to do it because we want to make it more complete, want to make it more thorough. I'm not going to do the September 4th meeting, so that'll be on our agenda and prepared by September 11th. Hopefully I'm going to be in that office by then.
If they move stuff out, just come on and put it back.
Anyways, there are other future agenda items. Yeah, Gordon.
Mark, Governor Reynolds opened up the grain hauling to 90,000. And we're still waiting for Jacob Page to open up more than just the 2 roads to the ethanol plant. I think it's time to address that because fall harvest is coming. And right now, I cannot go from my place to Shell Rock without taking gravel road, going through Floyd, going all the way down the avenue and coming back. I cannot go on 155th. I can't go on Shadow, and I can't go down Clarksville.
I think it's time. Jacob said he was gonna research that, do bridge adjustments and all that. I'm here in Saragordo County and Chickasaw County, they basically opened it up because we do it every fall anyhow. So I think that needs to be on the next agenda item because fall harvest is coming and we need to have more roads than just the ethanol plants.
All right, I appreciate the suggestion. All right.
Pipeline inspector.
Pardon?
Are you ready for pipeline inspector?
We'll see, could be, yeah. Thought I'd get to see what's gonna happen down there, it's a pretty big week down there, I wanna see what's going on down there. But yeah, we'll be talking about pipeline inspectors soon, because we've heard from the three companies that we talked to.
And then just that drainage utility procedure resolution also that y'all have information to see what you want to do.
Right. Yeah, there are some things that we've had on our list for a little while that we will be getting to.
And that Invenergy, Maryland Guards talk like that September 11th might be a date that works for them.
Okay, so we might have another wind discussion with another wind developer, perhaps on September 11th. Anything else? All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion. Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, moved by Jorgensen, second by Keeper, to adjourn, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All right. Thank you.
Public aid.
I'll call you.